Welcome to Inside the Deal, Paul, and listeners. I'm your host, Helen Souze, founder of Exordium and Inside the Deal podcast. Today, we're taking a deep dive into operational challenges facing the insurance and reinsurance market in general, and what better place to have this conversation than Bermuda. So welcome to the show today, Paul. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you.
VIPR.
It's great to be here, and I'm glad you brought the sunshine. That was.
I try.
Yeah, great job. Great job.
I just smile and it just comes out.
Absolutely. I'm Paul Templar. I'm the CEO at VIPR. So I've been with the firm since we founded back in 2009.
Okay.
So what we do as a business is help insurers, reinsurers, MGAs, brokers handle the data that's passed between those parties. So what we mean by that is typically an MGA will send data via a broker into an insurer. That insurer then receives the data, but just for fun, there's no set standards for that data. Just for fun. So it means that the insurers have got a real difficult time to aggregate that data, make sense out of it, put it into a common language they can actually get reports, use for downstream systems, that sort of thing. So what we do is we help the parties we work with to consolidate that data, to validate it, so to make sure that the third parties they're working with are doing what they should be doing in line with the contracts they have, and then ultimately use that to get some really useful insights about the information they've gathered, use it for other systems, for exposure management, for finance systems, back into ledgers, that sort of thing, and streamline that process as much as possible.
So you're very popular at the moment then.
We are.
Data's a very big buzzword in the industry in general.
It is, and I think the realization now is that everybody wants to do more insurance business, particularly in the delegated insurance space that we predominantly work within. And you just can't do more by throwing more people at the problem.
Yeah.
You need sensible systems and processes and procedures to be able to efficiently handle that data. And without those, you're really on the back foot.
And let's talk about what you just said about throwing more people at it, because right now it's very much, from the conversations we've had, manual, a lot of manual processes, spreadsheets, shared inboxes, a bit of a spreadsheet nation.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest risks and inefficiencies that you see, and how does VIPR sort of address these?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's amazing how over the years things have changed. So if you go back, perhaps when we first started the business, we were seeing that underwriters, insurers were receiving these spreadsheets, these bordereau files with hundreds of rows, if not thousands of rows of data, and they were just concentrating on the totals at the bottom. That was what's important. They just cared whether the thing was profitable or not. Regulations came along, things like Solvency II, which made it much more important to understand the data. And now we're in a position where there's a real understanding that if the data is used in the right way, that can drive operational efficiencies, it can improve underwriting results. There's so many good things that can happen. So trying to do that sort of work manually is almost impossible. If you can imagine, one of our larger customers might have 2,000 or 3,000 spreadsheets land on their desk every month, and to try and manually cobble that data together to make sense of it, almost impossible. So having systems there reduces operational risk, because you're able to get that data into a sensible state much faster. It's improving the underwriting results, because you can actually make good use of that data, and it stops a lot of this kind of siloed cottage industry thing that's going on, where lots of different teams are processing the same data over and over again. So it kind of gives a central place for all this data to be gathered from, and it really drives massive efficiencies.
They say junk in, junk out. So,
Absolutely.
If you've got good data coming in, it's clean, you can make sense of it, and it's more importantly centralized.
It is, and then everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
You're not getting sort of variations of the truth.
Yeah.
You've got this central repository that everybody can dive into, get the data they need and use it, and everyone's using the same set of data.
And do you just play predominantly in the delegated space?
Yeah, it's interesting how it's expanded. So that's definitely where we started. So we started off in the Lloyd's insurance market, and today, we're still a massive part of that. We've probably got 60% of the Lloyd's managing agents as customers. So that's a really important place for us. And the binder space there, which is their version of Delegated, is really where we play. But what we've seen in more recent years is that's expanded, not just in the types of customer we're dealing with. So now we work with reinsurers, MGAs, brokers, as well as insurers, but actually geographically where we're operating. So we're operating across Europe, Switzerland, Benelux, Nordics, Spain, but also in the US, Canada, and hopefully to do more business here in Bermuda. Yes. And essentially where parties are receiving data in maybe a structured way, but not a standardized way, we can help to aggregate that data, validate it, store it, and then help them use that information.
So you mentioned that you're working in all these different regions geographically and that you want to do more in Bermuda. You've been on the island this week meeting with some Bermuda clients.
Absolutely.
Having a good old time. We had a nice little reception at the yacht club last night.
Very good,
yeah. What are some of have you kind of seen any sort of Bermuda nuances or anything that sort of stands out as a unique Bermuda challenge? Not even a challenge, but maybe a unique nuance that needs a VIPR solution or any kind of solution compared to some of the other markets?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we've seen some slightly different use cases than we've maybe seen before. So things like pricing of new reinsurance risks. Okay. So we had a good conversation yesterday where a reinsurer was receiving in a lot of information to price a new risk, but it was very hard to aggregate all that data that was coming in. So that's a potential area we can look at, particularly where there's claims coming in. Okay. And a lot of claims data is coming in. We already operate in that space, so that's something that we can definitely help with. But it was really good to see that a lot of the problems we're solving in other areas of the market definitely exist here. And there's a massive place for what we're doing.
Excellent. So beyond Bermuda, the data being a good thing and a very needed thing, the standardization of data obviously being a challenge more broadly. What other sort of wider industry impacts are you seeing as a result of either not having good data, and on the flip side, having that data and being able to put it to good use? How are you seeing in some of those scenarios?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. There's definitely a gap between the businesses that are using data well and those that aren't. And we're seeing the businesses that are using data well growing faster, making better decisions, having better structured organizational structures, versus the businesses that aren't doing quite as much with the data, and they are starting to lag behind.
Yeah.
So it is quite interesting to see that, and you can see that in the results when we look at the annual results for the different markets. Some of the standout businesses we know are using systems to help them, and they're putting that data to good use. Again, if you roll back a few years, it was certainly the case that things like boardroom management, file management was just a kind of a side of the desk activity, kind of an also run sort of thing, something we'll do when we get a bit of spare time.
Yeah.
But there's much more emphasis and focus now on making it a real profession, that proper part of the business. And with that increased focus, we're seeing that better business is being written, particularly in the delegated space. It's becoming a much more profitable area of the business. It allows insurers to enter into markets that perhaps they haven't historically been in, to test the waters, to tap into that expertise that's out there in the form of the MGA market, and really start to expand what they do as businesses.
There's a lot of talk about technology and AI and data and integrating all of these things. And there's almost like this, we need to do it. We know we need to do it.
Yeah.
There's almost a reluctance to implement it, not with everybody, but certain within some companies and some organizations. And that's either like, maybe you could attribute that to a culture of it's going to replace humans and we don't want to replace humans. Maybe it's a general lack of understanding and awareness around AI and how it can be used and the risk associated with it. And then I think a lot of it can probably boil down to we don't yet fully understand AI and the risks it brings. So until we understand it, how can we implement it safely within our business? So with all those sort of headwinds coming at you on the technology side, when people do decide that they want to move forward with a solution, a technology-driven solution. How easy is it to embrace that and integrate that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So a couple of bits there will unpack. So the first thing is the integration piece.
Right.
So we absolutely 99% of our customers have some sort of integration, whether that's with a policy admin system, a broker system, reinsurance system, whatever it might be, to take data and bring it into our platform, as well as extracting the data and putting it into other platforms, whether it's ledgers or back into a PAS or whatever it might be. So the integration piece is really important, and that's a great step towards the automation to take sort of some of these manual efforts out of the loop. The other piece, of course, is the AI element, and that's really interesting. And you're absolutely right that there's been a real mixed reaction to AI. We've definitely seen some businesses almost anti-AI. They don't trust it. They don't understand it. They don't want to use it. That's it. Whereas others are absolutely AI first. Everything we must do must have some sort of AI.
It's got to be about balance.
There is,
right?
yeah, and I think it's really important. I think AI, there's a place for it. We have to seriously consider how we can utilize it. Tony and I were talking earlier, and it's almost like having a complete university of AI PhD graduates at your fingertips that you can tap into almost for free. And if you had that, what would you do? That's the kind of quantum that we're looking at. And AI definitely can help with certain processes. So, looking at documentation, comparing documentation, summarizing, helping with matching of sort of headers for mapping data and all that good stuff. And there's loads beyond that. And the great thing about AI is it is something that you can have running 24/7. You don't need to supervise it. It doesn't need a pay rise. It doesn't take vacations. It's there. But there's definitely that element of caution that in the way we look at it is we don't want to use AI just to say we use AI in our solutions. We want to make sure that there's an absolutely valid use case for AI.
Yeah.
We've already started using it. It certainly has some fantastic use cases, but importantly, the way we've approached it is to make it switchable. So for those businesses that absolutely don't want to use it right now, we can turn it off and you can use our platform perfectly well without it. For those who do want it, switch it on. You've got that enhancement. And that whole security and then where's my data going? Is it going into training data? All that sort of stuff. We control all of that. So we run our own large language models within the cloud. It's not going outside of that. We're very careful about where things are going. We're SOC 2 compliant. So we're very, very conscious of all the security boundaries around it. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what regulations come out around the use of AI within businesses, particularly where we are all operating with potentially sensitive data. These are individuals' information that we're working with, and how that's going to be affected by regulation down the line.
There's definitely, the BMA has a discussion paper out at the moment now where they're trying to get thoughts from local business leaders and local businesses as well as exempt companies on the island on the use of AI. They're trying to get those answers collated by the end of September with a view to moving forward to consultation paper. And it will be very interesting to see how regulations fit around AI, particularly given it's so fast-paced.
It is, yeah. And I think that the interesting thing is that it's not just being built into products, it's being used day to day within businesses. So, people are using it to help generate documents, to summarize things. There's all sorts of things that AI is being used for outside of just, it's built into a product. So I guess it's here to stay.
They do say consequences of not using this technology is it's not that if you're using AI, you're not necessarily ahead, but you need to know how to use it in order to keep pace.
I think so. And the way that I certainly see it is it's like, I guess, a set of superpowers. So it's not replacing you, it's just making you better. You're able to do more than you were able to do.
I guess there's a downside to that.
Somebody's got kryptonite.
So looking ahead, and the role of automation and advanced analytics shaping the market over the next 5 years, what opportunities do you see technology and efficient use of data unlocking for reinsurers and insurers here?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, again, within the space that we've sort of traditionally played, the market is over $260 billion worth of gross written premium, growing at 20% per annum. And everybody wants a piece of that action. They all want to do more with it. And technology is certainly going to give them the ability to expand, adapt, enhance without the need to throw more bodies, more arms and legs at that. So efficiencies through the use of technology, absolutely. But I think a lot of the manual processes that we're seeing at the moment, where people are, getting a file, loading it into a system, processing it, all those sort of manual tasks can be automated. And again, that doesn't have to be solely through the use of AI. We've got some great technology that will do things like go to an FTP location, go through some files, pick them up, pull them in, process them. So things like that are just giving that little bit of an edge. That means you don't need to employ more people to go and do those sorts of things. So I think through the clever use of automations, maybe coupled with AI, you're going to find that you can do a lot more with fewer people and get much more of that business that's out there.
So let's talk a little bit about the VIPR technology, because you guys are like building blocks, right? You can either have the whole set and build it any way you want,
That's
or
right.
you can just choose. So what are the different platforms?
Yes, like Lego, isn't it?
Yes.
So the core platform that we have is called Intrali.
Intrali.
So I didn't make these names up, by the way.
I was about to ask the inspiration behind it.
And what Intrali does is it allows a user, and these systems are squarely aimed at business users, so they're not really IT tools. These are for the subject matter experts that understand the data, bringing it in. So it allows them to bring in some data, to map the headings on that data. So you can imagine a spreadsheet with some headings, take those headings, standardize them to a common set of headings.
Right.
It will look at the contract terms and conditions and look at every single row on that spreadsheet and make sure that it's in line with the contract. So what I mean by that is it the right territory, the right coverage? Are we taking the right commissions? All those sorts of things are checked. And then once it's done that, it will give you an exception report to say, hey, you've got these low-level problems, you've got these showstoppers, and maybe you've got some duplicates. So it gives you that ability. So you can resolve those issues within the system, or you can send the data back to the data supplier with some notes, and they can resolve the issues and resupply. So that's the core tool. So it's there to standardize and validate the data that's coming through, ultimately storing it in a database.
Okay.
Beyond that, so if we sort of go more towards the data supplier side, we've got a product called Portal.
Okay.
That's a much simpler one to understand, which really is there to...
Say in the name.
Yeah. That's really there to allow the third parties to submit data.
Okay.
So that's one step towards getting rid of email submissions. So rather than somebody emailing
boxes
exactly that.
Okay.
So it's coming in. The beauty of that is that you can start tracking the submission from the second it hits Portal. So whereas an email doesn't get processed until someone grabs it and puts it into the system, with this, it's being tracked immediately. So your stats around performance of your third party starts to become a lot easier. Plus, you've got that feedback loop where you can send back any issues via the portal. So that's great.
So almost straight through.
Yeah, that's right. Because what happens is within the Intrali system, once you've created that map, every subsequent submission just uses the map that you've created, and it will just go straight through. Okay. So the scenario could be that a third party drops some data into the portal, that puts it into Intrali, maps it straight through. If there are no issues, it's there in your database ready to process. So it's straight through. So that's great. So that was our first step. We then had API enablement on the portal.
Okay.
And to assist with that, we brought out a product called VIPR Connect, which is an integration tool.
Okay.
And this is where we can now start to plug into other platforms, like some MGA systems, for example. These can interact via API, pull data straight through again into Intrali. It can go through FTP sites, you can go through S3 buckets, broker portals, all those types of things to grab data through. And even for the less sophisticated parties, we've done things like produced Excel plugins. So they can just install that on their Excel, open up a file, hit submit, and it uses the APIs to pull that data through. So we've tried to approach it from an all capabilities point of view, from the very less sophisticated right the way through to API enablement. So all of that. And then on the other side, we've got VIPR Data Cloud, which is our cloud data warehouse. That's built upon Snowflake technology. Snowflake's one of the largest cloud data warehouses out there. And what we're doing there is we're building a data model. So the information, the data that's coming in, almost certainly isn't all like for like. So you might have some transactional data, some cumulative data, as at, whatever it might be. By the time it gets into Snowflake, we've normalized all of that into transactions. And we also work with a single currency. So we preserve original currencies, settlement currencies, but we create a reporting currency. So that means that when you come to report on the data, it's all in the same shape, but also same currency.
Yeah.
And then the final piece of the puzzle is Insights, which is our reporting suite. And that gives you really good access to the data that you've processed. So from an operational point of view, things like data timeliness, data quality, how many times you've had to go back and ask for corrections, all of that sort of stuff. So when it comes to having those conversations with your partners, you can say, hey, come on, you're a bit late with your data, it's not great quality. Here are some things you can do to improve that. But also things like underwriting metrics, so underwriting triangles, earned to incurreds, a whole bunch of claims reporting, expected premium income monitoring. There's a whole bunch of pre-CAM reports that you can actually get to there to understand the data, as well as being able to use that data model to be able to analyze it yourself and build out your own reporting.
Excellent. So what does the integration timelines look like for you guys? Does it depend on whether or not it's one Lego block or all of the Lego blocks? And
Yeah.
is there like a discovery phase where you try to sort of figure out how the block would integrate with the rest of the business?
It's exactly that. So,
Okay.
so what we'll do is sort of early doors. We'll demonstrate the products. We'll talk through all the capabilities, what the pros of using them are, and then when a customer decides to go ahead, we'll start off with the discovery phase,
Okay.
which where our team will go in. They'll look at how the business is working at the moment, make some suggestions as to how we can improve their processes potentially, but also how those integrations would work, what their data looks like, and those pieces. We'll then formulate a plan in the form of a statement of work, and then with agreement from the client, we'll then go ahead and start the implementation work. And unfortunately, it is one of those how long's a bit of string things, because it can be really simple, one element and a couple of contracts, right the way through to a global entity that wants to operate in multiple territories.
Right.
So it does vary.
And you do have some big global names.
We do.
As well,
Yeah.
which is exciting.
It's really exciting. So we've worked really hard, and we're up to around about 55 logos now, and it's a mixture of insurers, reinsurers, MGAs, brokers. And if you look at the list, these are top tier brokers, top tier insurers, top tier reinsurers. So it's really exciting to see how it's growing.
So when we first started out, you said VIPR was started in 2009?
Yes.
2009. So you've been at it for a little while.
Yes, that's right. I know, I don't look that old.
No, you don't at all.
I wish.
It's some lighting in here. As you sort of gone down the road of sort of implementing some of these solutions with VIPR, what are some of the lessons learned or key insights that you've kind of picked up along the way?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So it's really important to engage the right stakeholders.
Okay.
And often, where maybe it's an IT-led project that hasn't involved the business, there's reluctance from the business then to adopt technology. So having the right stakeholders in the room, making sure that everyone understands what the mission is, what the journey looks like, and what we're trying to achieve is super important. Our implementations over the last few years have transformed dramatically.
Right.
It's moved from let's get it installed, train the customer, and then we'll support, to more of a consultative approach, working out how we can best get the software in, the customer using it, and that ongoing support. So areas like support desk, customer success, implementation, we've really thrown a lot behind that to really grow those areas of the business, to make sure that not only is the implementation a success, but the ongoing relationship, we see it more as a partnership, is a success. And because of that, we've had long-standing customers been with us for 12 plus years and ongoing. So it's been really good.
And when you get this ideal scenario of all the right stakeholders in the room around the table, having a conversation, how easy do you find it for them to embrace the technology? Like, is there like a light bulb moment where they're like, oh my God, you've just made my life so much easier?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we kind of find one or two scenarios. So one is they know exactly what they're looking for. They've gone to an RFP process. They're out looking for this thing that solves a problem, which is great. So everyone is in the same page. And what's great is that when we show them what we're doing, then you can sort of say, yeah, actually this is going to work. You can see those cogs turning. And then you get the other scenario where people haven't heard of this before, they don't quite know what it is, and you go in and you show the art of the possible, and that really excites people and gets them going, and then they realise that this is a journey that they really want to be on.
And single most important step that the Bermuda insurers and reinsurers can take now. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think actually my colleague Tony did an excellent LinkedIn post, and the simple message there was doing nothing could be the most expensive thing that you ever do.
Yeah.
And that I think is actually really quite true. I think there's a real danger and a cost to waiting or not doing something. And I think the biggest message that I could give is, whether it's ours or whoever, whichever vendor they want to work with, look at what's out there, do your research, get some testimonials, do whatever you need to do, but do something, because early mover advantage is so valuable. It's going to give you the ability to get into a position ahead of the competition, to be able to move faster, be more agile, do more. And even startups now have got that mentality where getting the right technology on the ground up is so important. It's not an investment for a couple of years' time, it's now.
Yeah, exactly. I think no action is action. I'm a firm believer.
Yeah.
If you don't take an action or make a decision, you've essentially made a decision, and it could be your most costly.
Absolutely
So,
right, yeah.
I do believe that you got to do something.
Do something.
So you've been on the island this week. You take off tonight.
Yeah.
You're probably taking the British sunshine that you brought with you.
I do hope so. It's pouring down in the UK.
Okay, well, it's been pouring down here for the last 3 weeks.
But at least it's hot
day.
and pouring down.
Yeah, it's been a bit bipolar, if I can say that. Been a bit indecisive.
Yeah.
But you're going to be back hopefully around rugby in November.
Yeah, really hope so. Yeah, that's looking like a really exciting trip for us. So we're out in the US just prior to that. So hopefully
that's at Target Markets.
Target Markets and ITC.
Excellent.
And then I think Tony's going on to some other conferences. So
yeah,
super excited about that. But yeah, if we can tie that in, we'd love to come back.
Great. So we'll be seeing more VIPR on the island in Bermuda. And if you had any key takeaways or anything you wanted to leave our listeners with today, from your perspective, what would that be? Yeah,
I think there's definitely a place for our technology within the businesses, the reinsurers, the MGAs on the island. We've seen that. We've had some great conversations, and we'd just love to meet more people. I think that's the key. It might not be for everybody, but what we found here is that there's a fantastic community. It's great to meet people, and we just like to meet more of them.
Well, we're a friendly bunch here.
You are,
and we do love it. We do love a little cocktail and a chat by the water.
We can work that out.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find it difficult.
Well, it's a burden you have to carry.
It's a hard life, Well, we look forward to having you back on the island
Thank
and
you.
seeing more of you. And I'm sure the Bermuda market will be very open to receiving you, especially around rugby.
Absolutely.
We do love a good rugby game. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you, Paul, for joining us and
Thank you.
sharing your insights. And you have been listening to Inside the Deal, Bermuda Insights Global Impact. Until next time, stay curious.